Everybody. Today we're going to talk about Gray and his necklace of ears. um, so, most of the villains that I've made, not just for this series, but for most of my books in general, tend to be stand ins for like a system, or they have motivations that are um, maybe not relatable, but you could understand how someone could get there. Gray and the man who attacks Dara and Scapegoat are probably the only exceptions to that, in that they are purely like evil. They definitely have their own motivations. I'm not saying that they are just evil for evil's sake, but there is no, and I don't want there to be any redemption for them, which sounds very harsh, but this the farthest, I guess, from acceptable that I can think of. They're cruel because they enjoy being cruel rather than having no alternative and resorting to violence or cruelty as a way to get something they want. Like Gray would kick a puppy, kind of thing. And I kind of regret that a little bit. We're going to be talking today about Crisis and about uh, Pet Shop mostly. A little bit about the 40th Day as well. So if you haven't read those, now's the time to click off. um, uh, Originally, Gray wasn't supposed to be like as big a part as he was. He was originally just going to be so in the scene that he first appears in Crisis, he tries to get Ruth to pay him for bringing her a necklace of infected ears that he's killed as like proof of bounty, because he heard from somebody else who turns out to be Bernard in that book and Joe uh, in Pet Shop, same guy, same character, um, that she will pay goods for bounties on infected, when what she's doing is not that. What she's doing is doing for others what she couldn't do for her own child. She's taking care of a suffering person, basically. Um, so originally, that scene with him um, coming into her police department and threatening her was meant to be the only time that you saw her. But as I was going through Crisis, I realized that given Father Preston's um, personality and his past and the way that he'd gone through becoming infected and then recovering, he would need some kind of voice to push him farther. Like, otherwise, he would just be two bit pain in the butt instead of an active character in the story. And I couldn't think of anyone better suited for his personality than somebody who bought into his need to be a miracle worker, basically, that had super faith in him and still had that kind of motivation to not just like save, quote unquote, the infected. Like that, they wouldn't be satisfied with just standing outside the asylum cell doors and shouting Bible verses at them. So what I had done in The Cured with Phil was think about how somebody would really react to these people that you don't think are people anymore, that are a problem, that are just surrounding you. You can't get rid of them. Like, you could kill the people, the infected that were around you, but you would not be able to completely eliminate them. There would always be more. Like, that's just for a numbers game. That's what we're talking about. So for Phil's sake, kind of, and we'll get more into this with Phil, but um, kind of his motivation was using the problem against itself. So he was using the infected to defend against other infected. Like, they were literally guard dogs for him, among other things. So my thinking with Gray was, what if somebody didn't just stop there? What if they didn't see the infected as a, as a means to defend against themselves, but also as an investment, a labor pool, or you know, a way to get something out of other people, whether that's using them to attack other bandit camps, or, you know, um, using them for other purposes. So for Gray, the motivation was coming across this guy who had access to all these infected people that he could potentially use to get ahead, because at the base of it, Gray is completely and utterly selfish. He wants to be the top dog wherever he is, and he assumes that everybody around him also wants that, so he acts accordingly. So when I say he's the most purely evil, that's kind of what I mean, is that he is simply selfish and will do everything he can to get himself ahead, whether that means, playing into Father Preston's delusions, or, you know, taking out people that never really hurt him in order to secure the infected for himself. He is just doing what he thinks everybody else will do to him. He's just doing it first. So he's really shocked when Ruth stands up to him in that first scene with him. That's like an utter shock, because he's used to being the top of everything. Um, but he's also really smart, and he learns. So he's clever, and he tries to take out anyone who's going to be a threat for him. That's why he sticks around and comes back for Ruth, and why he basically tortures Bernard. It tortures Joe first, and then after he finds him again as Bernard, tortures him as well. And why he can't just leave the cured colony once he finds it. He's got to make them suffer because they took something from him and he wants it back. He's basically more ambitious than Phil, but I don't think Phil would do most of the things that he does, even as bad as Phil is. Phil's kind of like stumbled into a situation where he acts cruelly, but if he hadn't been in that circumstance, then he would probably just be a normal guy. Gray would never be a normal guy. He would be cruel no matter what era or society he was in. The same with that character in Scapegoat that I was talking about. There are some people that want to hurt other people, and Gray is one of them. So he is probably the flattest character, I'd say, that I've ever written, and I do kind of regret that a little bit. I think if I were rewriting him now, which we'll talk about in a later video, I think he would be a little more complex. um, maybe have a little more backstory. Anyway, that's probably all I have to say about Gray right now. But if you have questions about him, that's another one where I could see people having a lot of questions about why did he do this or why did he do that, or what would have happened if this didn't happen, kind of thing. Definitely let me know. Um, to spoil the 40th day, the conclusion of the 40th day, he was not always meant to be what ended Nella. Originally, when I originally wrote it, I've written actually three, I think three endings for the 40th day. When I originally ended it, she turned for a different reason. Wasn't anything violent like that. But I thought it would be fitting if if there was a question about whether she was turning for Frank's sake or because the illness had finally got to her. So that's why he ended up being on the sailboat at the very end. Um, there was another version where she ended up living and not being infected at all, and then the version where I think they were, I can barely remember it now, but I think they were actually in the city dispersing the chemical agent when she like succumbed. Um, and then Frank had to kill her. So that ending was actually really hard to write because I didn't want Frank to have to kill her, honestly. So there's pulling your punches and then there's pulling your punches, and I couldn't quite do it for Nella. So that's why it ends up being him, not because he's special in any way, I guess is the point. He's not some super villain in anything except his own attitude. He's not that competent. He's not that good at stuff. He is competent, he is smart, but he's not super smart. So anyway, that's Gray. Next time, we're actually going to skip this page because it has to do with the surprise, and I want to save that for later. So if I forget at the very end, you let me know because this page is important. And I will talk to you later.